My name is Isabella Delaney, and I am 29 years old. People think of me as the solid one, the reliable sister who always says yes, always shows up, always holds things together with duct tape and dignity. Until recently, I believed being dependable was a virtue beyond questioning. I believed love meant sacrifice, and family meant putting your own needs last. That illusion started to crack the day I realized that being needed and being valued are not the same thing. It's funny how betrayal doesn't always arrive as a knife in the back. Sometimes it comes with sticky fingers and the smell of Play-Doh, with a toddler clinging to your leg while their mother smiles, thanks you, and disappears for the weekend. The betrayal started quietly, almost politely. I'd been living in a modest two-bedroom apartment in Willow Creek, one of those sleepy suburbs with tree-lined streets, PTA royalty, and backyard barbecues where everyone pretends they're doing better than they really are. My apartment is the kind of place you call cozy when you don't want to say small. After my last relationship ended badly, I decided I didn't want roommates, or chaos, or constant compromises about the thermostat. I wanted silence. Solitude. Stability. At least that's what I told myself. Then Melanie happened. Again. My older sister has always been dazzling in the way wildfire is dazzling, gorgeous, unpredictable, and guaranteed to leave wreckage in her wake. She's 34, a single mother to two impossibly cute kids, Lily and Marcus. Lily is 7, full of curious questions and unbrushed hair. Marcus is 4, sticky-fingered and always giggling. I love them like they're my own. Melanie, on the other hand. I love her too. But love and resentment can sleep in the same bed. It started with one weekend. Melanie had an emergency, which in her world meant anything from a last-minute shift at the salon to a third date with a guy who might be different this time. She asked me to take the kids Friday through Sunday. You're a lifesaver, Izzy. Seriously, I owe you big time, she had said over the phone, her voice breathless like she'd just sprinted through an airport. I'd just come back from work, my feet aching from 8 hours of being on them, and my fridge contained exactly one yogurt and a bottle of white wine. But I said yes. Of course I did. Because I loved those kids. Because Melanie sounded desperate. Because that's what family does. That weekend turned into every other weekend. Then almost every weekend. Sometimes weeknights too. At first, I told myself it was good for me. Lily's drawings were taped to my fridge like little badges of honor. Marcus liked to curl up on my lap and pretend we were on a spaceship. Their laughter filled the apartment in ways I didn't know I needed after breaking up with Jake, the man who took 4 years of my life and left me with nothing but a bruise of a memory and an unused wedding Pinterest board. The problem is, when you're always available, people stop seeing your time as yours. Melanie stopped asking. She started assuming. Can you grab them Friday? Would become they're already on their way. Love you, without pause for my response. At first, I said nothing. I made excuses for her. She's exhausted. She's doing it alone. She's my sister. I started cooking meals with little ones in mind. I rearranged furniture to make more space for them to play. I bought extra toothbrushes and Paw Patrol sheets. And somehow, between the job I didn't love and the family I couldn't say no to, my life started dissolving into everyone else's. One evening, after another long shift, I came home to find Lily sitting on my couch in a princess dress, watching cartoons. Melanie had dropped them off hours early, without calling. My neighbor had let them in with the spare key. Mommy said she had to go, Lily said, eyes glued to the screen. I called Melanie. No answer. Not even a text until after midnight. Sorry, phone died. You're amazing. I'll pick them up tomorrow. It hit me then, the weight of how easily she had folded my life into hers, how little space I had left to call my own. And how I had let her. I wasn't just the fun aunt. I was the unpaid childcare, the emotional sponge, the plan B who was always expected to smile and say, "It's fine, really." Except it wasn't. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a thread of something dangerous stirring in me. A need to ask, what happens when the helper says no? It's been a year since the weekend drop-offs became normal, so normal, in fact, that I stopped marking them on my calendar. There's no need to write Lily and Marcus under Friday anymore, because Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday too have ceased to belong to me. I didn't hand them over exactly, not with intention, not with clarity, but one blurred weekend at a time, my time became someone else's property. I used to joke about being the cool aunt, the one who knew how to braid hair without hurting, the one who remembered everyone's favorite snack. But lately, the joke has started to feel more like a dirge, an echo of something I used to laugh at because laughing was easier than confronting what I had become. A second mother by default. A third option by choice. An unpaid helper who doesn't know how to quit. Last Saturday, I had tentative plans to go to a movie with Aisha, a coworker who's been trying to pull me back into the land of the living. She's funny, always wearing earrings shaped like tiny food, hamburger studs, cupcake hoops, once even a miniature eggplant I pretended not to understand. We'd talked about seeing that new thriller everyone was raving about, something with a twist ending and a soundtrack that keeps you on edge. I was halfway into curling my hair when Melanie texted. "Hey. Can you take the kids tonight? Emergency. I'll owe you big. Love." No explanation. No apology. Just an emergency, and a pink heart like she was asking me to grab milk, not rearrange my life again. I stared at my reflection, curling iron suspended in midair. My hair was only half done. I'd finally put on makeup after weeks of barefaced exhaustion. And in that moment, I should have said no. I should have typed out a simple "can't tonight, sorry," and gone on with my life like a woman who still believed she was entitled to one. But I didn't. I called Aisha, mumbled some excuse about a migraine, and texted Melanie back. "Yeah, bring them over." By 6:45 p.m., Lily was on my couch asking for cocoa even though it was 74 degrees outside, and Marcus had already unpacked his dinosaurs and built them into an elaborate death trap involving my spice rack and a yoga block. They were happy. They were comfortable. And I was back to square one. Sometimes I wonder if they even realize how often they're here, if they think of this apartment as home number 2 or just another stop in their mother's increasingly unpredictable schedule. Melanie has a boyfriend now, a younger guy named Troy who thinks he's charming because he once bartended on a cruise ship. He's always got a story. A punchline. A reason why he's not the problem. Last Thanksgiving, we had dinner at my parents' place. Well, dinner is generous. My mother microwaved cranberry sauce and insisted the kids set the table while she half-heartedly defrosted a pre-cooked turkey. Melanie arrived late, in heels too high for the occasion and perfume thick enough to taste. She plopped herself on the couch, passed off Lily and Marcus to me without so much as a glance, and started scrolling through her phone like the world owed her silence. I poured juice for the kids. I cut their turkey into bite-sized pieces. I made 3 different kinds of mashed potatoes because Lily doesn't like lumpy ones and Marcus is apparently off butter now. My father didn't even blink. My mother, half in the bag by hour 2, leaned over during dessert and said, "You know, you're more consistent than their mom." She said it with a laugh, like it was something to be proud of. I think that's when the bitterness began to ferment. You start by being helpful. You start by being kind. And then one day, someone hands you a child's backpack without asking if you're busy, and the silence you don't break becomes consent. It's not that Melanie is evil. I'm not trying to paint her as some cartoon villain in stilettos. It's worse than that, she's just careless. The kind of careless that only someone deeply loved can afford to be. She believes, with full certainty, that someone will always catch her fall. And that someone is me. We had a fight 2 months ago. Well, I tried to have one. It was after a long weekend where she dropped the kids off Friday night, then ghosted me until Monday morning. I had taken Lily to her ballet class, baked cupcakes for Marcus's preschool fundraiser, and missed a date with a guy named Ryan who had actually seemed interested in hearing about something other than my sister's children. When Melanie finally came to pick them up, 40 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors, I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, trying to keep my voice from shaking. Mel, this isn't working for me anymore. You can't just keep dropping them off without asking. She blinked. Blinked again. I thought you liked having them. You're so good with them. It hit me like a slap, the casual weaponization of a compliment. That sentence was a straitjacket wrapped in sugar. You're so good with them. As if that made everything okay. As if my competence was permission. I opened my mouth to speak, but she was already calling to the kids, asking if they wanted to stop for ice cream on the way home. By the time the door closed behind them, I was left standing there with my words half-formed and useless. I've started to notice the shape of my absence in my own life. Aisha stopped inviting me out. Not in a mean way, just in the quiet, self-protective way people do when they realize your maybe next time will never be a yes. My yoga mat is still rolled up in the corner. The pottery class I signed up for last spring? I missed the first 3 sessions because Marcus had a cold and Melanie had a thing, and I gave up before I even tried. Even my therapist commented last session, her voice gentle but firm, "Isabella, when was the last time you did something that was just for you?" I stared at the floor. She kept going, more pointed this time, "You're not a bad person for wanting boundaries. Being family doesn't mean being a martyr." That word, martyr, has started to stick in my throat like dry bread. I think I used to believe that love was measured in sacrifice. That the more you gave up for someone, the more your loyalty counted. But now I see the rot underneath that thinking. Because when you give everything, some people just take it as proof that you had nothing better going on. Last week, I was cleaning my fridge and found a note Lily had written in crayon. It was folded between the magnets and a shopping list I never finished. The paper said, "Auntie, I love you because you always say yes." At first, I smiled. Then, I felt something deep inside me twist. Because I don't want to be loved for my compliance. I don't want to be someone who says yes just because she's afraid of what happens if she doesn't. There's a line, isn't there? A line between being helpful and being used. A line between showing up and being erased. And I'm starting to realize I crossed that line so long ago I don't even remember what it looked like. It's Wednesday now. I've got 3 messages from Melanie already. One asking if I can take the kids on Friday because Troy has tickets to something. One reminding me that Marcus needs allergy medicine. And one with a laughing emoji and no text, like we're still close enough to share inside jokes. I haven't answered any of them. Instead, I'm staring at the blinking cursor on a new email, one addressed to a therapist who specializes in family boundary coaching. I haven't sent it yet. But I will. Because the truth is this, I love my sister. I love those kids like my own. But I'm beginning to realize that I can't keep disappearing into other people's lives just to feel like I have a place in them. And maybe the real emergency wasn't any of Melanie's last-minute plans. Maybe the real emergency is mine. The storm began long before the thunder arrived. It had been raining off and on all week, the kind of humid spring downpour that leaves everything damp and restless, as if the entire town has been holding its breath too long. The forecast called it a low-pressure system stalled over the region, but I felt it as something else entirely. A pressure inside me. A heaviness that pressed behind my eyes and coiled at the base of my spine like a storm I could neither predict nor contain. Melanie had called on Thursday, voice urgent, flighty, and faux apologetic, as always. "There's this conference in Tampa. Beauty trade stuff. Really last minute but huge for my brand. I need you, Izzy." She always needed me, but only in the way a sink needs a drain or a car needs gas. Essential, unacknowledged, and constantly expected to perform. "You'll have the kids Friday to Monday morning," she added breezily, like she was offering me concert tickets instead of 72 hours of unpaid childcare in a 900-square-foot apartment already fraying at the edges of my peace. Troy might fly out to meet me Sunday night, so it might be Monday afternoon before I grab them, but you're cool, right? You always are. I was at work when she called, stuck in the back office processing 3 weeks' worth of late invoices because our new hire had called out again. I remember looking at my phone screen, her name glowing, my thumb hovering over the red button like it weighed 10 pounds. I didn't answer. She left the voicemail anyway. By Friday night, Lily and Marcus were on my couch again, popcorn crumbs in the cushions and their backpacks dropped like anchors by the door. The storm hadn't hit yet, but the wind had already started pulling at the windows with impatient hands. We had pizza, cheese for Lily, pepperoni for Marcus, mushrooms for me that nobody else touched. We watched a movie that Marcus picked, some animated mess of monsters and marshmallow guns. I smiled through it. I asked questions about their week. I remembered that Lily had a spelling test and that Marcus was nervous about a new kid in his preschool class. I tucked them in with warm socks and night lights. I kept showing up. Because that's what I do. Saturday morning was quiet. The kind of quiet you only get when the rain starts before the kids wake up and everyone moves slower, like even their bodies feel the weight in the air. We stayed in pajamas. We built a blanket fort in the living room. Lily asked if I'd braid her hair like I used to, and I did, even though my fingers ached from the cold. It was somewhere around 11 a.m. when the moment happened. Marcus had fallen asleep under the blanket fort, a picture book flopped open beside him like a wingless bird. I was sitting on the floor beside Lily, carefully brushing out a knot in her long brown hair, when she spoke. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't even curious. It was the calm, factual tone children use when repeating things they've heard enough times to believe. "Mom says you're too pathetic to say no," she said, watching her toes wiggle beneath the hem of her pajamas. "That's why she always leaves us here." The brush froze in my hand. For a moment, I didn't breathe. The room was warm and quiet except for the steady rhythm of the rain and the slow rise and fall of Marcus's breathing in the blanket fort behind us. Lily didn't look up. She kept studying her toes like they held more mystery than the words she had just spoken. I resumed brushing her hair with careful, even strokes. "Is that what she said?" I asked, not because I didn't believe her, but because I needed to hear it out loud. I needed to feel the words slap against the air and bruise it the way they bruised me. "Yeah," Lily said softly, now examining her fingernails. "She told Troy you don't have anything better to do. That you always say yes because you don't have a real life." There was no malice in her voice. No judgment. Just pure, unfiltered repetition, the kind of truth only a child can deliver because they don't yet know how to wrap cruelty in cotton. I finished her braid. Tied it off with a pink hairband from my junk drawer. Kissed the top of her head. And then I got up and walked to the kitchen like I hadn't just been gutted by a 7-year-old wearing unicorn slippers. I opened a cabinet. Closed it. Opened the fridge. Stared at the contents like I'd never seen a jar of pickles or a bottle of almond milk before. I think I stood there for 10 minutes. That night, after Lily and Marcus were asleep, I sat on the couch in silence. No TV. No music. Just the rhythm of rain tapping glass like a metronome for a life I hadn't noticed was offbeat until now. I thought about everything Lily had said. Not just the words, but the weight behind them. The casual cruelty. The certainty. I thought about how many times Melanie had smiled at me while handing off her children like bags at a baggage claim. How many times she had said, "I don't know what I'd do without you," but never once asked what I was doing for myself. I thought about all the moments I had explained her behavior away, to friends, to coworkers, to myself, telling the same story with different language. She's just overwhelmed. She's doing her best. It's easier if I help. They're just kids. They didn't ask for this. But tonight, all those explanations rang hollow. Because this wasn't about being needed anymore. This wasn't about love. This was about utility. I wasn't the cool aunt. I wasn't even the second mom. I was the backup generator, the emotional landfill, the soft landing that no one ever checked for cracks. Melanie didn't see my kindness as a gift. She saw it as a resource. And somewhere along the way, I had stopped being a person in her life and started being a function. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like an hour, tracking the patterns of light that danced across it every time lightning cracked through the sky. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the hurt had already passed through me too many times to draw blood anymore. It was just marrow deep now. Structural. The kind of pain you build a life around. But something was shifting. That night, sitting on my thrifted couch in the stormlit dark, I made a quiet promise to myself. Not vengeance. Not abandonment. Just truth. I promised that I would stop pretending this was normal. That I would stop letting guilt disguise itself as love. That I would stop waiting for Melanie to see me as more than a convenience. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't come crashing down in dramatic ultimatums or shouted fights. Sometimes it arrives in the soft voice of a child who doesn't yet know how much damage the truth can do. And sometimes that truth is the very thing that sets you free. I didn't plan the visit ahead of time, but it wasn't impulsive either. It was one of those moments that builds quietly for days, like water creeping toward the edge of a glass, slow and steady until one more drop tips it over. It had been 5 days since Lily's words pierced the quiet of my apartment like a knife slipped between ribs. I hadn't told anyone, not Aisha, not my therapist, not even myself if I'm being honest. But it echoed. Every hour. Every time I saw a child. Every time I reached for my phone and saw Melanie's name on the list of unread messages. I couldn't unread it. I couldn't unfeel it. That morning, I packed a small tote bag with Marcus's favorite stuffed bear, the one with the chewed-up ear he'd left under my couch, and Lily's sparkly water bottle she'd forgotten beside the sink. I told myself I was just being kind. Just returning their things. But the bag felt heavier than it should have. Like I was carrying something else entirely. Something unspoken that had finally decided to take shape. Melanie's house was 15 minutes away, just far enough that I could rehearse what I was going to say 3 times and still not believe I'd actually say it. Her driveway was crowded. A pink scooter was tipped sideways on the lawn, and a box of Amazon deliveries sat half open by the front door, rain-dampened and ignored. Her car was there, which meant she was too. The music from inside was thudding faintly through the walls, some bass-heavy pop anthem she probably played to feel younger than she was. I knocked once. Waited. Then let myself in. She never locked the door. I think that says everything. The house smelled like air freshener and old takeout, a familiar cocktail that always gave me a headache. Toys were scattered across the floor, laundry heaped in corners, dishes crusted on the counter. Melanie called it lived in, like that was a badge of authenticity, but I always thought it looked like a life trying too hard to outrun itself. She was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, legs tucked under her in yoga pants and a bleach-stained hoodie. When she looked up and saw me, she didn't even flinch. "Hey. Didn't know you were stopping by," she said, already half distracted, already reaching to minimize her screen like she had something to hide. "I just came to return a few things," I said, holding up the tote. My voice was calm, too calm, like the part of me that usually wavered had gone quiet in order to listen. Melanie sat up straighter, brushing her hair back with one hand and motioning toward the kitchen counter. "Just throw it over there." "Thanks, you're the best." I didn't move. "I want to talk." She glanced at me, then leaned back against the couch with a groan. "Oh God, what now? Did Marcus pee on your rug again?" "No," I said, taking a breath that felt like it might shatter me on the way out. "It's about Lily." Melanie's brow furrowed slightly, just enough to register mild interest. "What about her?" "She told me something. Saturday morning." Melanie rolled her eyes. "If she said you're her favorite, don't get cocky. She tells everyone that when she wants candy." I kept my eyes steady on hers. She said, "Mom says you're too pathetic to say no. That's why she always leaves us here." There was a pause. Just a beat. Just long enough for me to see the flicker in Melanie's eyes before the smirk formed on her lips like a shield. Oh, come on, she laughed, waving a hand. You know how kids are. They make stuff up all the time. She probably overheard something and twisted it. You're really going to get bent out of shape over that? I didn't blink. Did she make it up? Melanie scoffed, stood up, and paced toward the fridge like she needed movement to diffuse the tension. Jesus, Izzy. You're being ridiculous. This is why people don't confront stuff. You take every little thing and blow it into some Lifetime movie drama. I followed her. Quiet. Steady. She didn't say it like a joke. She said it like a fact. Melanie opened the fridge, pulled out a soda, popped the tab too loud. So what? She said, turning around sharply. You want me to deny it? You want me to apologize for venting to my boyfriend because my sister acts like a saint but still finds a way to be a martyr? I stared at her, words forming slowly in the space between fury and grief. I've dropped everything for you. Every weekend. Every emergency. Every text that came at the last minute like it was my job to rescue you from your own life. You said yes, she snapped, her voice rising. You always say yes. That's not on me. Don't put your people-pleasing issues on me like I forced you. You didn't force me, I said, and my voice cracked for just a second. You manipulated me. She blinked. You counted on me not saying no. You made me believe that showing up meant I was loved. But you didn't love me, you used me. Melanie's expression changed then. Her smirk collapsed into something meaner. Tighter. So what, you want me to pay you, she snapped. You think you're some underappreciated nanny now? You want back pay for snacks and bedtime stories? Jesus, Izzy, grow up. You're not a victim. You've got no kids, no husband, no career worth bragging about. Babysitting gives you purpose. I could feel my hands shaking. My throat tightening. But I didn't sit down. I didn't walk away. No, I said. What gives me purpose is being someone who cares. But you twisted that. You didn't trust me. You used me. And you made your daughter think I'm a joke. That landed. Melanie's mouth parted slightly. Her arms folded over her chest like a closing gate. You're overreacting, she said, quieter now. You're being dramatic. God, you always do this, get all righteous because you think being quiet makes you better than everyone else. I never thought I was better, I replied. I just thought being kind mattered. I thought showing up meant something. But now I know the truth. To you, it was just easier than taking responsibility. Melanie's eyes flickered, not guilt, not remorse, but rage at being exposed. She shoved the tote bag off the counter and it hit the floor with a dull thud. Take your martyr complex and get out of my house, Isabella. You don't get to come in here and lecture me on motherhood when you've never done more than babysit. I nodded once. Slowly. I won't come back. Good. I turned and walked to the door, my footsteps calm, my heartbeat anything but. The rain had stopped outside. The sky was still gray, but the world felt strangely clean. Like something had been scrubbed raw. I got in my car, pulled away from the curb, and let the silence wrap around me like armor. My hands were still shaking, but I had never felt more solid in my life. Because finally, I had said the thing I was never supposed to say. And even though it hurt, even though it cracked something deep inside me, I didn't regret it. Not one word. The light hits different in this new place. It pours in through tall windows I didn't realize I needed, washes over floors I chose without compromise, and glows across walls that are still half bare but finally mine. It feels like exhaling after holding my breath for years. My new apartment isn't big, and it's not fancy, but every square inch of it is an answer to a question I didn't know I was allowed to ask. What if I stopped disappearing into other people's lives and started showing up in my own? I moved here 3 months ago, just after I renewed my lease at the old apartment and realized I couldn't breathe there anymore. That space, cozy as it had once been, had become a shrine to a version of myself that never said no. Every time I passed the hall closet filled with forgotten coloring books or tripped over a rogue action figure wedged under the couch, I felt the weight of 1,000 unpaid debts I never asked to carry. So I packed it all up, donated what I didn't need, sold what I didn't love, and started over. I told Melanie I was moving, but I didn't give her the address. That wasn't petty. That was peace. The first weekend in this apartment, I didn't have to clear a corner for a makeshift play area. I didn't need to buy cereal in 2 separate varieties or double-check the bathroom for baby wipes and extra toothbrushes. I lit a candle that smelled like eucalyptus and pine and sat in the middle of the living room floor, painting for the first time in 5 years. It was clumsy. My brush felt foreign in my hand. But it was mine. Since then, I've painted every week. I joined a local hiking group for women who wanted fresh air and firm ground. We climb trails with names like Wolf Rock and Whispering Pines, and sometimes we talk, but sometimes we don't. I like that. I like that nobody there needs anything from me but presence. I also started therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where you pretend everything's fine and spend the whole session talking about other people's problems. No, this was different. This was bloodletting. This was excavation. My therapist's name is Michaela. She wears sensible shoes and asks questions I don't know how to answer, like, when did you first learn that saying yes equaled love, or what would your life look like if it only included the things you chose? The first time she asked that, I cried so hard I couldn't speak. The kids? I still see them. But now I decide when. And how. No more unannounced Friday night drop-offs. No more rearranged plans for last-minute emergencies that somehow always lasted 72 hours. I told Melanie, calmly, clearly, like a grown woman who had nothing to prove, that I love Lily and Marcus deeply, but I will no longer be available on demand. She didn't take it well. A few weeks after our confrontation, she sent a vague text at 2:14 a.m., one of those blurry digital olive branches that says everything and nothing all at once. I'm sorry for what I said. Things have just been hard lately. Hope you're doing okay. I read it. I stared at it. I didn't respond. That, too, was peace. Because an apology that asks nothing, changes nothing, and expects immediate reconciliation isn't an apology. It's a reset button. And I'm done being reset. The kids came over 2 Sundays ago for lunch, dropped off by Troy, who lingered awkwardly at the door like he wasn't sure if he should come in or disappear. I didn't invite him inside. He left. I watched him drive away before locking the door behind me. That moment, the slam of the door, the sound of his tires fading down the street, it felt like the punctuation mark on a sentence I'd been writing silently for too long. Lily was wearing her favorite pink leggings, the ones with the glitter stars that shed like fairy dust everywhere she goes. Marcus had a new haircut, too short and uneven in places, like Melanie had tried to fix it herself and given up halfway through. They looked taller. Older. Like time had passed and I hadn't even noticed because I'd been too busy rebuilding my spine. We made sandwiches. We painted birdhouses. We laughed. When they left that afternoon, I didn't feel drained. I felt full. This morning, I checked the mail and found a card addressed to Ms. Isabella Delaney. The handwriting was crooked, the kind that falls between cursive and print, clearly written by someone still learning what it means to leave a mark. Inside was a simple message. I miss you, Auntie Isabella. You always listen to me. Lily. No glitter. No hearts. Just truth. I stood in the middle of my new kitchen, my thumb brushing the edge of the paper, and I let the tears come. Not the kind that spiral or tear you apart. These were different. These were the kind that water something. That clean you out gently. I put the card on the fridge, right in the center, where I see it every time I reach for cream or carrots or cold water after a walk. And I said, out loud, I can still love them. I just won't lose myself doing it. That sentence, that truth, was the finish line I didn't know I was running toward. There's this belief, especially in families, that love means sacrifice without limits. That showing up means vanishing. That kindness means silence. But I've learned something in the wreckage: if the price of belonging is your own voice, it's not family, it's servitude. You can be kind without being a doormat. You can be family without being a sacrifice. You can choose your own life without setting fire to theirs. And maybe most importantly, you can still hold love in your hands even as you finally let go. So if you're listening to this, sitting in your own too small apartment, buried in expectations you never agreed to, choking on the weight of loyalty disguised as guilt, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to say no, even to the people who built your childhood. Because saying no isn't rejection. It's remembrance. It's the way back to who you were before you forgot you mattered too. My name is Isabella Delaney. And I finally remembered. She used me as free daycare. Until her kid told me the truth is about the thin line between love and exploitation, especially in families. Isabella's quiet strength and ultimate stand show that real loyalty includes self-respect. You can be kind without being a doormat. You can be family without being a sacrifice.